Hey guys, welcome back to another exciting week of YOML. This is the Monday, and so exciting to be back from a long break. But we are here for another exciting episode 354, and let's talk about mammals and dinosaurs.
Mammals.
I think
Nope, just mammals.
just mammals, not
Just mammals.
dinosaurs.
No, that's the other book from this guy.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. This is all about mammals. So this book
And
is
dinosaurs. People like dinosaurs.
fair enough. So this book is by this author named Steve. I think it's Brusatte. I can't remember pronounce his name. In the future, this guy is like a world-renowned dinosaur expert.
Hence
And
dinosaur.
yes, he does have a dinosaur background, but through his dinosaur exploration, he wrote this awesome book called The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs, right? I'll actually get to that one later because I read this one first because I liked
So you have read dinosaurs first?
No, I read the mammals one first.
But you should have read dinosaurs first.
I should have read dinosaurs first, yes. Yeah, right. But either way, they kind of stood on their own either way. So this dude is like obsessed with dinosaurs, and through his what do you call a dinosaur? Paleontologists? Is that what they are? Or what do you call
like archaeologists?
Archaeologists? I think it's a paleontologist, right? He's a scientist who discovers the history of life on Earth through fossil records. Yeah, paleontologist. Yeah, so he's a paleontologist. Anyway, so this guy's like a world-renowned paleontologist, and he, through his studying of dinosaurs his whole life and his obsession with dinosaurs, he came to realize how intertwined mammals were with the dinosaurs, and then he got kind of fascinated with mammals as well. The first book that he wrote was called The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs, and then the second book he wrote was called The Rise and Reign of Mammals. So this book is called The Rise and Reign of Mammals, A New History from the Shadow of the Dinosaurs to Us by Steve Brusatte. So this book takes
But we are mammals, right?
We are mammals. Humans are mammals, yes.
Okay.
Actually, that's one of the fun statistics that I wrote down in here. So mammary glands, i.e. producing milk, boobs, is why we are called mammals. You know that?
All right.
There you go. Any animal that produces milk is a mammal. Yeah, they have mammary glands, so they're mammals.
Mm. Did they say like whales?
Whales are mammals.
Mammals?
Well, they produce milk, yes.
Got boobs.
Yeah. All right, so I'll get to the reflection for this one. Big things come in small packages. This is going to be an action-packed, YOML, and I'll the actual lesson won't come for a minute because we got to go through some of just the cool shit that we learned, in this beginning of this journey. So first off, team mammal, right? After I finished this book, I was like, damn, mammals are cool as hell. Like you're talking about bats, sonar and stuff. You're talking about whales. Whales used to literally walk on the surface of the earth. Stop and think about that for a second. Whales used to walk, and then they went into the ocean.
But they're not as big, right?
No, they weren't as big as a whale. Whales weren't as big as they are now because, you know why?
Because they couldn't carry the weight. I mean, I don't know how much.
Well, that's true, but elephants are really heavy.
Well, I don't see anything that holds up that kind of weight.
Well, they weren't as big as they are now.
And whales are much, much bigger than elephant.
Now, they weren't as big when they were walking on land, I would presume. Lions, mammals, whales, bats, you name it, humans. Mammals, right? This is some of the unique stuff that all of our species can do is pretty mind-blowing, honestly. Like, and I was like, shit, we're pretty rock on. We're pretty damn cool. So after reading this book, I was like, team mammal all the way. Because I didn't want to write a 10-part reflection, I was like, I'm going to write down just some of the 10 things or the 9 things that I thought were really cool. And then I'll get to the 10th one will be my actual reflection. So point number 1, something that I learned in this book that was really interesting. Number 1 was teeth and jaws. They're like one of our superpowers, like just our teeth and our jaws. Like if you don't have teeth at work, you're fucked. I mean, honestly, they are so incredibly important because chewing is how we were able to break down food easier to digest it. One of the reasons why cows have 4 stomachs is because they need to process it in multiple different steps. Well, when we break down food by chewing it more, we get more nutrition out of it. We absorb the nutrients. Our stomach doesn't have to work as hard to break it down. And then you throw in fire for humans. Like that was why we cook all of our meats for the most part. That's why we cook a lot of our food because it further helps to break down things even easier. And that's why humans have benefited so much from fire in particular. And that's why most of the food you eat is easy to eat. That's the point. But our teeth are so important for that. Now our jaws number 5 was our ear bones actually used to be former jaw bones. I don't know if you know that. Our ears are extensions of our jaws. I mean, they just evolved over time because we used to actually, when we were worms, apparently, like, that was how we heard through vibrations in our faces. We were like on the ground, apparently. You felt, sound and communicated through your jaw, which then slowly started to break off a little bit because we could eat more, and then it evolved into what it evolved into. So those are like jaw bones that are your inner ear bones, which is mind blowing, right?
Your jaw and your ears is still connected.
They are. That's why when you pop your ears, like
you can actually like block your ears and use your jawbone to communicate the sound. You still will hear it.
Yep.
But
That's
you
how
don't. It doesn't need to go through the ear. I think you just vibrate through the jawbone, and you can hear exactly how you hear it normally.
Yep. That he said, like, we used to have our face on the ground. That was how we heard.
Yeah. So bones are still connected today. The ear bones and the jaw bones.
Which is pretty wild. Number 2 was big brains need big calories. Like if you're gonna, because our brains we have the biggest, like, I think it's like the ratio of like our size to our brain mass or whatever. Anyway, either way, it takes a whole lot of energy to run our brains, so we need a lot of food. That's why also fire, jaws, all these things that we have, teeth, like, that helps us eat more, consume more. Like that was pretty mind blowing. I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense. Whoever can have access to the most calories usually wins, right? And whoever can digest and eat it fast. I.e., a whale went into the ocean because they were like, hey, there's nobody out here to compete with. I can just go swim around all day long and nice cool water to keep myself, my body temperature down, and I can just soak up all the plankton I want to eat all over the place. And nobody's going to challenge me. And I can just get as fat as I want, which we'll talk about that in a second. Number 3 was being able to regulate our internal body temperatures ourselves versus being subject to the environment. So you think like reptiles, right? They get all their heat from the sun in order to power them. That's why they're very slow moving. That's why they only really do shit during the day. It's also why they have watertight skin, because they can't lose water. But at the same time, they can't go as fast as us, right? We can move a lot faster because we power our own self with our own energy on the inside. But we're also vulnerable in other ways. But I think that's still pretty cool. The mammals can do that. See here, our mammary glands, we already talked about that. That is why that is a mammal. That is what defines a mammal. That is the definition of a mammal, is if you have mammary glands and produce milk. Birds were dinosaurs, are dinosaurs, not just descendants. They are dinosaurs. Like, think about that for a second. Birds are dinosaurs.
I can agree with that.
Mind blown, right? Like, what the fuck? Like, you look out the window and you see an eagle flying around, and you're like, that's a fucking dinosaur. I mean, it is. Yeah, pretty wild. The next one was whales walk the earth, like, had no idea. Finally, the last 2 were mammals were around during the time of dinosaurs. Did not know that. I thought it was dinosaurs ruled the world. They left somewhere along the way. Mammals, became mammals, and we evolved to where we evolved to today. Apparently, we were very much so around during the time of dinosaurs, and have very much so been around for a very long period of time.
We're rats.
We were rats. That is right. We were rodents. This is the last point, and then we'll get to the actual reflection. Number 9 was when temperatures rise, mammals get smaller, and when temperatures cool, we get bigger. Ever wonder why the tallest people in the world are in Scandinavia?
Because it's fucking cold.
Because it's cold. They gotta keep their bodies warmer, and there's less competition up there for food and resources. I mean, we talked about this when you're down in Tulum, Mexico, on the Yucatan Peninsula, and you're running around out there in the blazing sun and dying. You know what you never see is somebody with a beard, and you also never see really tall Scandinavian people with beards down there, because they would die in a heartbeat.
Survive.
Like, they cannot survive. I mean, because they are too slow, and like their heart would just explode, probably trying to, like, just regulate body heat while they were down there. But in Scandinavia, they're good to go. Have you ever noticed that when like really fat big dudes, when they're out in the cold weather and they're just like walking around without a shirt on, and you're like, you're fucking nuts, and they're like, well, I'm not even that cold, and you're like,
you have a 300-pound jacket on you.
Exactly. I can't actually comprehend how they feel, because I would be shivering so hard to try to generate any amount of heat. I'm not a big guy. You would be the same way as I am. We're not big people. If you were the size of the mountain from Game of Thrones, I'm sure 30-degree weather in the Midwest is probably like, this feels great out here. Now, with that out of the way, this book really blew my mind with a lot of things, right? A lot of new stuff that I learned. I wasn't going to write a reflection about all these, but Here's what I do want to write a reflection about. And this goes back to the most mind-blowing thing was that mammals were around during the time of the dinosaurs. And we survived because why did we survive and dinosaurs didn't?
But according to the book, if you're small.
That's correct. We were burrowers and we had a diverse diet so we could eat anything. Our jaws and our teeth were able to crack open nuts and whatever else we had to eat, and our stomachs were able to digest a lot of different things, right? So we were small, we could burrow, and we could eat a really diverse source of foods. That was why, I mean, I'm not saying that all the mammals survived. It was just enough of the mammals, so the rodents basically that were out there that survived enough for our species to evolve and step in the void that was left by the dinosaurs, right? And for me, that was a big aha moment. And here's why. Like my whole life, I'm obviously, how tall are you?
About 5'6".
Okay, so I'm like 5'5". I'm like, how much do you, like, if you don't mind me asking, how much do you weigh?
140.
140. All right. So I'm about 130 pounds, right? I think I've been like between like 130 and 132 since I was like 18 years old. I don't think I've gained any weight, like, I mean, at all. And I'm kind of proud of that, to be honest with you.
Right.
But like, I don't weigh a lot and I'm not tall. I'm about 5'5" and weigh about 130 pounds. You're a small guy too, right? I don't know if you feel the same way that I feel, because I think you come from a culture, how did you feel coming to America as a small person, and being around, the giants that are here all the time?
Feels like a midget.
But how did you feel when you were like in a room, with like 6'5", like dude with German ancestry or whatever that's running around,
It's way too big. I mean, I wasn't scared because I know I have the advantage. Like I can move around them like the
true.
fly around a bull.
But it's true. I mean, I don't know if you're like anything like me. Like maybe it's because was born in America and raised as an American, but like, being a small American is kind of like you're looked down upon in a lot of ways, as like I've actually heard people say this before, like, the smaller you are, the smaller the other countries are in this world. This is so wrong. This isn't even remotely true. But the smaller the people are in a country, it shows how malnourished they are, basically. So if you come from a region of small people, that means that you don't eat enough food and you're not nourished. I've been told this before by fitness influencers, tall people.
They're idiots.
They're idiots. Like, I mean, the size of how big you are has nothing to do with whether you are eating a well-balanced diet and or nourished or not nourished, like
zero. I can feed you all day long, but I'm going to just keep pushing you down to the ground. You will be short. I guarantee you that.
Right. Like,
right. And if I starve you and I stretch you, you will be tall. I guarantee you that too. Scientifically, they have done it.
Yep. So it doesn't matter, right? Like the point of what you're getting at is like
well, it's not the only thing that matters, right? Everything it has a role to play. It's part of it, but it's not everything. So you can't say this and that. It's not definitive. Right. So it's not about like nutrition alone, right? Nutrition is play a part of it, but there are some studies and cases where you can give somebody nutrition, but you take away another ingredient, then you still won't get it, right?
Agreed. And not only that,
if I give you part of the truth, it still won't work. If I give you a campaign to do and I just hold back a part of it, a key, a piece of the puzzle, whatever, it won't work, right? It's just one of those things where I give you, let's say there's a combination lock, and I give you 3 of the 4 numbers, right? Would it work? No. But you say, well, I give you 1. So that's what you give me is among the thousands of variables, you give me 1 nutrition and say, well, this guy don't have nutrition, this guy has nutrition, and this is the result. That is stupid, right? This is I talk about this before as well. Is people take one variable, one facet of a kind environment, and take it and they apply it as a whole, general to the wicked environment. That's not how it works. Because I told you, let's say you have, like I told you about the woman in the red dress, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say your wife wears the red dress, and she is 5, whatever. And so these are the different facets that you're talking about. If you have found a person with these few criteria, can you guarantee me that's the person you're looking for? That's your wife or that's somebody else looking like? But in reality, we don't do that. But why do we do that in everything else? In businesses,
we like to put things
gurus, they have, with nutrition, blah, blah, blah. Either that you don't know, right? And you're an idiot, or you are a bad person by knowingly give people false information. So either way,
It's
right?
wrong.
It's wrong.
It is. And we have made it clear in this journey that we don't know anything either, but we don't also walk around saying that we 100% know what's right or not right and preach it to somebody either. So that's an important caveat to all this stuff. So anyway, the point of what I was getting at, I was asking you how you feel. Same way with me, right? Like I always felt, the only word that kind of comes to mind is like less than. Like I always feel like I've always had a chip on my shoulder every room that I walk into for my entire life. You know, I mean, some of my best friends are
Yeah, I
6'4",
mean, I think that's
6'5", you know.
a rich
Yeah.
person's. Some person say, "Hey, am I gonna am I
I
getting
gotta
lunch
eat
today?
dinner, right? Yes, that
How
is
do I
kind of
take a
always been
shower? I don't have toothpaste."
all very true. Like, so it's all relative. Reference points matters, right? You know, but for me, like this has always been something that I've kind of held in the back of my own head, you know, of like, you know, I'm not tall, like, you know, and like it's the first thing that somebody notices about me, the first thing that they see about me, the first thing that they say anything about me to me. It's I know it's the first thing that people, you know, especially where we're from. When I'm in like Mexico, or if I were to travel to Vietnam or whatever, people wouldn't look at me and they go, "Oh, he's really small." They'd be like, "Oh, he's kind of probably normal size." My wife Felicia and I, we were down in Mexico in the summer. I was like, I feel like I was above average height out there, you know, like people where I was seeing, I was like, oh man, you know, it's very rare for me to ever be in a room where I'm like, I'm not the smallest person in the room, you know, and it's, you know, normally that is the case from a guy's perspective. And then not only that, from a male female perspective, right? You know, American women are like, you know, trained to say, if you ask them what their ideal man is, like it's usually the first thing they say is, well, he's probably about 6'4", 6'3". You ever heard of the delusional woman index before or something like that?
Everybody in our society today is brainwashed for something by somebody, right? Because it's not, they don't know what they want because they don't know who they are, right? So they were
Agreed.
told what they should want. Same thing for us. We were told what we should want. We are told what we should do.
You ready to do this?
Okay, let's
Right.
do
So
it.
I got standardsbro.com. All right. So a woman's going to say, what's my ideal man? Probably, you know, he's got to be at least probably 35 to 50 because, you know, I know he's probably made a little bit of money now at this point in time. Let's exclude married guys, you know, from this list.
Getting anybody.
Right. Exactly.
I'm married.
I mean, let's just say they're not picky about, you know, race. That's fine. We'll just leave it at any race. Minimum height. I would say most of them would say he's got to be at least 6 foot tall, right?
Exclude obese.
Minimum income. Well, you know, he's got to be able
100K.
to support, God, at least 100K.
Saying like 300K, 500K. So, you know, JP Morgan or what?
Well, there was some TikTok video I saw of some woman that was like, if they don't make at least like $500,000 a year, I don't think they could support my lifestyle. And I was like, what lifestyle are you living? And if that's like, here, we'll play around these numbers in a minute. So 100 makes 100K, any race between 35 and 50, not fat and not married. Probability 0.35%. So have you ever done this before?
I have not.
Your delusional score is a 4 out of 5. You're a cat enthusiast. Here, we can do it. We'll even put, you know, married men into this one.
But they're taken. Why?
Who knows, right?
No, you have to do exclusion. You can't get
All
them.
right. So let's say we actually want them to be like 6'3", and we want them to make like, you know, I don't know, 200,000.
Well, you're gonna make it like 0.001%.
Again, any race, like, so I just want somebody that's 6'3", makes $200,000 a year. True, that should be easy.
Yao Ming is one
And
of
he's
those
not married, not fat too, by the way. 0.017%. All right, they don't need to be that old. They don't need to be 35. Like I'll take anybody. I mean, I'll take 18 to 55, 56. You know, let's try that. 0.06. Anyway, my point being is
it gets worse.
It only gets worse, right? And this is how I've always kind of felt too with, you know, with women in America, is always like, you know, looked at me and gone, well, you know, he's excluded off of my list of people that I would even consider as a mate because he's 5'5", right? He doesn't even come close to a standard that I think of in my own head, right? So this has always been how I've thought in my own head, a little chip on my shoulder, I guess, if you will. And call it whatever you want to call it. It's not a big problem, not a little problem, but it's just something that like I've always had to deal with, you know? So that said, you know, I've always kind of hated being small. I mean, to be honest with you, after reading this book, totally flipped the script on it, right? I actually love being small at this point in time because being small was the reason why we survived. Because small is about versatility. It's about non-specialization. It's about, like you said, if you're a big fat guy, tall guy, you run circles around them, and like gets tired. We all think that David and Goliath, 99 out of 100 times that Goliath's going to win, but I don't know, maybe it's actually the opposite, right? I mean, being small and nimble is actually an advantage in a lot of ways. I started to think differently about this whole entire scenario personally, because the bigger and more specialized you get, the more fragile you become, is what I've discovered, right? Like you are a lot more anti-fragile the smaller and more nimble and flexible you are, and non-specialized that you are, right? So this is where I've always been pretty versatile, right? Like I can be a good athlete. I can also be smart. I can also be funny sometimes. I can also be whatever, right? Like, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm like some brilliant person, but I had to always figure out how to like fit into wherever I was going and adapt and mold myself into some way in order for me to be, adaptable and accepted into that environment in a lot of ways, right? There is not an advantage to being tall, bigger, and faster. If anything, it's a disadvantage, because those are the ones that die first. That's why the dinosaurs died. They had their pick of the litter when you, like a whale, you think of a whale, right? When a whale's out in the ocean, they can eat all they want whenever they want, because there's no competition from any other mammals, because they've done the hard work and they got into the ocean, they got into an environment where they could feed their calories, big calories, and minimal effort, right? Like they can just float around, they can be cooled off by the water. That's why they go to the cold weather. They can live really long, they can eat whatever they want to eat, but they are fucking vulnerable. If anything changes in the temperatures of the oceans or something I mean, they're gonna be gone in a heartbeat, right? When you become big and specialized, the bigger and more specialized you get, like Scandinavia, right? Think about Norway, Sweden. People talk about those countries all the time. They're like, oh, those are the model democracies and the model places where we should try to emulate in society, right? No, that's not true. They are maybe right now today, but their fortunes can change really fast, right? Like they are not they are not adaptable. Like they will not be able to change with the times. If something does change, they'll probably just collapse and it'll all just fall apart and go away, right? But us little rodents, which is what we are, that's what we came from. We are fucking small, tiny little rodents. And the further we get away from that, the more vulnerable that we get. The closer that we get to being small and more nimble, I think the more safe and protected we are from a lot of other things in this world. So long story short, the biggest thing that I learned from the rise and reign of mammals is I'm actually pretty damn proud to be a small person. And, fuck these tall people, because we'll still be here after everything is all said and done. And to prove my point, right after I finished this reflection, I Googled just a question that popped in my head. I was like, who are the oldest living centenarians and humans in this world? Guess what? The average height of a centenarian in this world is what? 5'2". 5'2". It's not 6'5", dumb asses. Their poor little hearts are pumping so damn hard, and they're so big and specialized and trying to heat themselves, they die. That's it. All right, I'm out. Love you.
So I have 10 minutes to rebuttal.
Oh, no. Sorry.
So I have 3 words for you. Beaver must dam. Beaver must dam. The thing is, I agree with your reflection, but I want to add more to it. And because I think, like I say, I don't know shit, but this is what I think. I think that being small is good, but not the reason why most people think why it's good. The thing is, that's why I say beaver must dam, is because the environment, right? When you are at a certain entity, certain species, certain animal, and you're in the correct environment, you will thrive, right? Because if you were to thrash me and you into this, like the dinosaur world, we probably would not be able to survive. Or we would thrash into the jungle.
Yeah.
No, we won't be able to fight off, right? And so the thing is, with everything being equal, okay, with everything being equal, the beaver must dam concept applies, because the environment has to meet the kind of animal that you are for you to thrive. Like, for example, if you were to put a certain plant in soil, in the right soil, it will grow big and tall. But you put it in the wrong environment, it just won't grow at all. And so same thing for us, is because the environment changes. The dinosaur were able to, they decline, give room for us to come out and grow and prosper. But if the dinosaur never die, we would not have a chance to continue to develop into. So small, the reason why we rise is because of chance. Okay, we rise because of chance, because there's whatever chance. Because if the dinosaur did not die, we would not have given a chance. Chance plays a big role in everything that you see today. So in the environment today, small is better because in this environment today, there's a lot of advantages to being small versus being large. Like you said, being large, there's less for you to maneuver, to be versatile. In our current environment, being small is versatile, right?
Right.
But if something were to, like, let's say the cold or the heat or whatever comes by, and basically we're gonna die out first.
Or unless we figure out how to burrow.
In the world with abundant food supply, the big guys will die first because it is pros and cons in every single thing, right? So back to what I'm saying is beaver must stand, meaning that the environment must align with who you are for you to thrive. And that probably the key hypothesis that I'm putting out there is find out the environment for you as who you are and be in it for you to thrive. And hence this reflection applies in that way as well. But in the current scheme of things, being small in our society today gives you more versatility, right? Because you can maneuver faster because your environment isn't as crowded, right? Because we have 7 to 9 billion people now. That's crowded. So being small allows you to maneuver. But you're big and you're crowded, right? You can't maneuver. It becomes a disadvantage for you. And because we're small, we're able to make changes quickly in a timely manner. Therefore, we can adapt quicker. That environment give us the adaptability advantage.
It always does. I mean, the smaller, more nimble
that
you can be.
advantage compounds over the years to make you want to become a community and want to work together. Now we have developed communications, like you and I can go and hunt a woolly mammoth now. But before, the community has become this, we will be picked off by a saber-toothed tiger, a woolly mammoth, anything that's much bigger than us. But because we had the chance to grow, we had a chance to prosper, we have compound the advantages over the years. So now we become even more adaptable. And so it's very hard to kill us now. But back in the day when the first rise of the mammal, we're not this communal kind of species where we can get together and start hunting down woolly mammoths to survive and make this big guy extinct. And so I'm saying is big changes happens at random. It's by chance. But you can help your chances by understanding who you are really and in what kind of environment you need to thrive in, and go and put yourself in that environment.
Great. I would say the only thing that I would push back on is the idea of you only get bigger when food is abundant and you are safe. Like that's when naturally things get bigger, right? Businesses get bigger when capital is abundant and they feel safe and secure. People get bigger when they feel that way too.
Bigger when you specialize. You get bigger when you have a one direction.
Yeah.
If you need to change directions, you have to be nimble. It's inertia. Meaning if you will become bigger, that is the law of nature.
Agreed.
The law of nature, if you are doing the same thing every day for all the day, you become bigger and bigger and bigger because that is what you do as a living species. When you have to adapt and change, this is when you start to become more optimal and more versatile so that you can say, hey, I can make changes like a Titanic, right? Versus a speedboat, right? It can change on a dime. The Titanic can't. You can't just change on a dime. If they see the fucking iceberg like for fucking 2 hours and they can't stop, they still can't stop.
Yep.
It doesn't matter.
The Titanic is a great example. Bigger is not always better. A lot of times it's a disadvantage.
The environment creates that encouragement for you to become bigger because human, we want to say get better than your yesterday. This is what human and other species is. You become better than yourself yesterday. But without the forces for you to be changeable, you will carry this inertia, which is like you go in the same direction, you become more specialized in what you do and become bigger. Dinosaur had that and it become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until one thing happens. And then for us, because of all we are still in the I believe we're still in the age where all these dust are still settling. We haven't gotten to the point where the dinosaur, where things
No, no.
have stabilized and we have a one-track mind.
Right.
Because today we have a very chaotic, very dynamic world that we have to deal with every day. So we have to stay small. Because you think about it, when we live in a country where it's always hot, right? And the weather changes quickly. We gotta move.
Yep.
When we move,
Climate change is
we
going to fuck a lot of Norwegians.
yes, because thinking we have to move, right? We have to
Right.
move. That means that we can't just lug our weight with us. We have to be okay. I need to be lightweight so I
Right.
can move and nimble because that's how I survive. But you live in a climate where things doesn't change, then you stay in that. You get settled into that mold, and you become bigger and bigger in that mold. Whether it's cold, whether it's hot, whatever. I don't think that matters. It matters is if things doesn't change, you settles into that mold and you become bigger, because the guy in the cold, they don't do a lot of work because they can't go farm and they can't go do a lot of shit, so they just
They can't
do the
do
same.
anything. So heat brings diversity of life too, right? So the cold, obviously, I mean, I think we're all smart enough to understand this. When it's really cold outside, you look around, it's dead. Everything is dead, right?
There's nothing you
There's
can do,
nothing.
right?
And
When you don't need to do activities, right? You need to, hey, I just need to build up the blubber so
right,
I can shield myself from frost. And
it's
then
about body warmth.
and this blubber on me is so heavy, I need to build bigger bones to carry it, right? So
Exactly what it is. Yeah.
that is quote unquote beaver must dam. This is what we're saying when we say beaver must dam. Is the environment dictates who you are as a person, and you are as a person thrive in an environment where it aligns with you.
Look, if
So
I moved
knowing
to
what you
Norway, I'd have
know,
to eat a lot more.
but the
I
thing
mean,
is, at the same time, you and I know now, if you and I move to Norway, you and I need to figure out how to still be nimble, because we have
right.
compounded the advantage of having the ability to work together, having the ability to think, right? The thing is, you say, well, I can move to fucking Dubai, but still have a growing, prospering city. That is human ingenuity. We
Mhm.
can go to the North Pole and still have a thriving community because we are using our ingenuity. That
Right.
is what afford us, because the time that we were able to become, to rise, that time compounds our advantages over the years, because you and I would have been able to work together as this tribe of people. Over
Mhm.
the years, our eyes have developed the white thing and the black people. I can look to different things and I can communicate with you, even making a noise, right? And then making the sound. So the same thing would mean you being able to understand each other and understand the advantage of having a shared responsibility, because we still have the self-esteem, but the self-esteem knows beyond itself that, hey, to be able to sustain your self-esteem, you need to collaborate to bring out this rooted memory. Otherwise, you wouldn't have it, because we're able to extend beyond that first level of understanding,
Right.
right? And so that have compounds us to today, where we create this big brain. The big brain, by the utility transfer, we're able to think, right? Because I told you about when you're in the cold, you build up the blubber, but the blubber too heavy, so your bone has to, build itself up to hold the blubber. So same thing, because same thing with ourselves as a mammal is, we have had the opportunity to rise, and we have the opportunity to compound on the ability to build our brain, work together. Now, because of that, we say, well, even if you throw me back into the dinosaur world, I can still thrive, because the big brain there, that was you, it came about because of the need to communicate and to collaborate and to
Yep.
do all these things. Now we just transfer its utility over to this new thing where we can say, well, I can go to the moon and still build a colony there, because even the moon is rocky. I can make it there. So same
Right.
thing when you're talking about the flower and the butterfly and the bees, right? Who developed the ability to see the colors flower, or the color flower attract, was
The
you
bee,
move
the bee,
into,
see, yeah, the bee
right.
having
So
colors or the
but
flower developing.
having that thing that you acquire have a utility that can be transferred to something else. That is what it means when, because we have compound our knowledge, our adaptability, our brain. Now you can bring it back to the tundra, right? You and I can survive because you and I can put our heads together and say, okay, how can we make it comfortable? We can say, hey, well, we're gonna build this furnace, right?
What
We can contain the whole fucking dorm inside, and like then we can shield all the cold out. We have so many different ways to adapt now, and so that compound is something that is a legacy, but only because chance give us a chance.
I'm actually kind of curious, like which are the mammals that live the longest and what are their sizes? Because it's saying the bowhead whale, and that actually makes sense because it can control their body heat. The whales have no competition at all.
It's about the survival of the species. Because
Agreed.
our gene isn't really interested in keeping us alive. It is interested in wanting us to create offspring to pass on, right?
But the longer they're alive, the more you can have more offspring.
Yeah, but
In theory.
but the thing is, there is pros and cons, right? Because the good side to having a big brain is you're able to think, right? But also you have been able to fool other people because you say, well, if you follow the gene theory, then you want to have a lot of offspring. But because of the brain, you can also do the opposite and use it as a negative. And people say, well, you can't have a kid because blah blah blah. You want a man that's 6'4", making $500,000 and not obese and blah blah, right? You become delusional. You know what I mean? Because the delusional isn't because you're delusional about yourself. You're delusional because of propaganda of all these other people that's trying to push a narratives. Right? So big brain allows both pros and cons.
So, but
Right?
do you want your brain to get bigger or smaller?
I want it to be bigger.
That's what I think everybody always naturally says. I want it to be bigger. This is kind of my argument here, right? Is like I think our natural tendency is to say, well, it should just be bigger, more, more.
The caveat is that the environment has to be aligned with what you want. If you say, having a bigger brain, but the bigger brain is being constrained by environment, that's not good, then you shouldn't want it. Because I'm not
That I
saying
agree with.
bigger is better or smaller is better. I'm just saying smaller is better today because of the environment that has curated for the alignment of smaller creatures. Not smaller, but the ideal size,
Well,
right?
but at the end of the day, I think a
Because
universal
let
principle.
me ask you this question, right? Would you rather be Chris, the human, or Chris, the cockroach? Because the cockroach smaller than you is better than you.
Do I want to be Chris, or do I want to just be? Do I think that cockroaches will live longer than the humans? Different.
I'm just saying a smaller company. Basically, this is what I'm saying is people can misunderstand what you mean. Okay, that's why I say beaver must stand because there is a caveat to. Because you say big things come into small packages. That's saying smaller is awesome. But by that same token, I can say, well, a cockroach is smaller. Then shouldn't you want to strive to be a cockroach?
And we always say,
And the
if
answer
there's
is
an
no.
apocalypse comes, who's surviving?
No. The answer is no because you have to say what is the environment because it's about optimization. It's not about okay. And the thing is, optimization isn't just one variable because when you are a fucking cockroach, how big can your brain be? So it's about the ratio because that's what I'm saying. It's the ratio of your brain to your body weight. Humans have the biggest number. Right? There are other animals have bigger brains by size, but not by ratio.
Right.
Okay? So it's about optimization. It's not about the size in one facet because size is one variable among many. That's what I'm saying. You have to make it considerations of what is the environment and what is the optimization and what is my advantages in totality. Because the advantages of having the size and adaptability. Why do we need adaptability? Because if you know the environment changes, adaptability is good because you can survive the apocalypse. But if you know there isn't going to be a apocalypse for the next 10 million years, then having versatility means shit.
I would agree.
Right? Because in the current environment, there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of dynamics. If that were to change, then you have to change as well. That's why I say go back to our first reflection. You have to align to your core values.
I mean, I don't disagree with you in any way, shape, or form. I think it comes down to balance, right?
Optimization, because even the
Yeah,
balance is your center of that balance is different than mine. Your disk of your balance is different. So it is the balance that for you. So to say, hey, I go meet 5 people, for 5 hours, and I stay do my stuff for 5 hours. That's center of gravity for everybody. No, it
right.
isn't. It could be 80 do nothing, no meeting for me, and 20% doing meeting with other people for me. But for you, it could be 80 vice versa. Or somebody could be in the middle, or somebody could be in the extreme. But that's their center of balance. It's not the same for everybody. This is why we're saying is it has to be an individual. You have to explore your own journey.
Agreed. And environment matters. All those factors matter that you mentioned. All right. I know you got to go because you're already way late, I think. So I'm going to put a pin on this one. This book is awesome. If anybody is curious about it, go read it. It's called The Rise and Reign of Mammals. And then we'll do The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs later on down the road if you're excited and you want to stay tuned because it was another great book as well. The question we can leave for you all is how might thinking small help you to do big things in life? All right. Have a good one. And we will see you all tomorrow.
Sounds good.